Hello, fellas and ladies. I'm about to talk about all the nominated short films. I was lucky enough to get the chance to watch them all in the theater at the TIFF Lightbox, and I have some thoughts on them. There aren't predictions by any means; those are coming soon this week, hopefully. I just want to give my general thoughts on all these because I have some thoughts on these guys. I'm gonna start with the documentary short category just because I was pretty underwhelmed. The ABC's of book banning is about a series of books that are banned in the US for teaching about America's past and present with race, religion, and homosexuality. Well, the urgency is pretty clear. The movie's presentation is substandard and goes around in circles. Initially, I was into the idea of presenting kids with the books and getting their perspective. That idea gets old very quick. Once the first book is talked about, they don't have much more to add, and the movie is just under 30 minutes long. On top of that, the movie switches from interviews with kids to just rattling off books that are banned, and then back to another interview. The essential message is felt with the first example, and then it has nothing more to offer after that. It felt like a PBS kids special. The borderline, the film can basically be described as, here's a book that's banned, 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 but here's a book that's banned, and what does this kid have to say about it? I think the book being banned is bad because we should learn about this stuff. Here's a book that's banned, 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 here's a book that's banned. What does this kid have to say about it? I think it's pretty bad that the book is banned. I should be allowed to read it and learn about it. That's pretty much the whole film. Barbara Little Rock is about a man named Arlo Washington who is, a barber in Little Rock, if you can believe that. But basically, he starts a non-profit bank in his underfunded black community. I was very into the story, very much. I think it does a good job of telling us Arlo's story, and it's something that deserves to be told. However, it definitely does a lot of the heavy lifting here. It doesn't really give us much outside of telling us what he does. I don't really have much to say about this one because there's nothing about it that I can point at and be like, that was bad. Or even bad at all, for that matter. Nothing about it, this movie was bad. It's just nothing special about the presentation about this movie, despite how interesting the subject at hand is. Island in Between tells the story of Liu Chang, the director of this film, and his relationship with Kinmen in the history of China and Taiwan's relationship. I got a little more out of this than most people did. I definitely liked how personal the film got when he was talking about his family and his connection to the United States and his home place. There was definitely something there to connect to. However, I definitely agree with what a lot of people are saying that the film is incredibly unfocused, particularly when it comes to combining the political stories with his personal life, in that there was no connection. Just one moment is his family and his new life in the U.S., and then just out of nowhere, here's war. By no means this is a great movie, but I liked it. I liked it. The Last Repair Shop is far and away my favorite of the bunch. It's about a Los Angeles warehouse where craftspeople fix students' instruments. The film lovingly decides to focus in on the craftspeople themselves and their stories and what music means to them, whether it's helped them obtain goals or help them heal through tough times, or even if music was the goal. These four people that the film focuses on are able to pour their hearts out, and it's very lovely to listen to their stories. Even though the film's shot are mostly archival footage and talking heads, cinematography is pretty striking. The lighting of the shots, there are some shots of students playing, and it's pretty beautiful to look at. I certainly recommend this one. Also, there's a Colonel Tom Parker cameo in this that I was not expecting to see. The final documentary short was Nai Nai and Waipo. Shows a filmmaker filming a day in the life of his two grandmothers who live together. A lot of people love this one, which I totally understand why. The film is lovable. If it has nothing else going for it, it has that. It did make me laugh. It did make me smile. But once it was over, I was just kind of up and go, oh, that's it? The movie doesn't get up much of anything outside the grandmothers being silly and, farting and shit. It's well made. I actually quite like the cinematography in this. But the movie stopped with the goofiness. It switched to the two women kind of just talking about how, they know they're going to croak soon, and it just kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, I can't knock, putting that in. I'm sure that's a real thing these two women are going through, but it kind of just sprung out of thin air. I like the movie, just nowhere near as much as everyone else did. I want to call any of these nominees bad, but other than Last Repair Shop, I didn't care about any of them. We can move on to animated short, which I think in general is an improvement in overall quality. Letters to a Pig, she's a Holocaust survivor, detail the story about how a pig saved his life during an invasion of World War II, and we focus in on one of the students that he's telling the story to as she begins to emotionally and in a way literally get pulled into the story through a dreamlike state. A very common theme with these nominations, with one glaring exception. Very unique and visually appealing animation, and Letters to a Pig is not the exception. The movie's drawn in almost visible broad strokes that often blend live action a little bit. The film is pretty great at challenging the audience. The movie has a message about collective trauma, but it's not told in a very clear way by any means, to the point where I can't lie and say I understood it immediately. But the movie sticks with you long after it's over, which is certainly a mark of effective storytelling. 95 Senses essentially sees a man tell an interesting perspective on each of the senses, but the film goes from sweet to bittersweet when we find out that the man is on death row on his final days. The film's animation plays with color and shapes in a very interesting way, which is a very vague way of describing the animation, but like it's hard to describe it. You'll know what I mean when you see it. The film sneaks up on you like a sledgehammer. The movie uses its unique approach on each of the senses to reflect on a reflection of our own mistakes and the paths we go down in life that lead us to where we are in life. In this particular case, a man nearing the end of his life just because of a horrifying mistake he made, through Tim Blake Nelson's endearing vocal performance, makes for a very emotionally cathartic viewing experience, especially towards the final, I want to say, like 2 minutes. Our uniform is basically just a detail telling of an Iranian woman's experience with the hijab at her school. The best part of the movie is far and away, once again, the animation. The basic idea is that the background is a school uniform, and many of the film's story is told through the fabric texture being divvied up into different and unique ways. That said, the film doesn't get at anything beyond that. It's just a quick retelling. It goes into what it's like being a woman in Iran, but it feels like a very cleverly animated PowerPoint presentation at some points. Pachydermy sees a woman recounting a summer vacation where, despite the nostalgic undertones, something darker looms underneath the surface. This movie is very successful at tone building. The movie does not hand deliver you anything. It makes the audience work to find the conclusion and the answers. And when you do, it packs a pretty heavy emotional punch. I won't reveal anything, but the film is very quietly devastating. The film's intriguing visuals help to put together the story on display, as the film tells about the monsters that stay with us, and how we try to move past them. I quite loved Pachydermy. And a movie I really didn't like was War Is Over, inspired by the music of John Hiyoko. The film takes place towards the end of World War I. I had to look it up, but it is World War I. And about a carrier pigeon who goes back and forth between both sides, and the two sides play a game of chess against each other. The movie is horrible. Unlike the other 4 nominees in the category, the animation is quite ugly. Other than some cool landscape wide shots, the character designs are very polar expressive. They just look very unnatural. Plot is the real problem. It's a very nonsensical plot idea. I ranted about it on my Twitter if you want to hear me go into detail. It's in a link. I'll probably put it in there if I don't forget. But this is a hunk of pandering garbage, and it's probably going to win because it's the kind of sappy war shit that literally has nothing other to say than, like, man, war is a no for me. Let's finish off with the live action short nominees. There are 2 of these I actively dislike, but 3 I loved, so much so that I'm actually willing to say that this is my favorite group of nominees. But because I'm going in alphabetical order, I'm going to have to sadly start with the worst of the bunch. Not just the worst of of these 5 nominees, but the worst of all 15 nominees. The After. It stars David Oyelowo as a dad whose wife and daughter are randomly murdered, and, he's sad about it. The movie is such a laugh fest for a movie that's going for tears. The beginning of the movie starts with a genuinely endearing familial bond, but while Oyelowo is making a big family over business phone call, a man in a full body armored suit comes up to his wife and daughter with a bloody knife ripped straight from Ghostface, stabs the daughter and chucks her off the bridge. While Oyelowo and some other pedestrians are holding the stabby boy down, he goes, check on her, is she dead? Which, I don't want to make assumptions here, but that, I feel like you could piece that one together on your own. But the wife decides to step on the railing, maybe get a different angle on the dead daughter, and she just slips and falls off the bridge too. How did nobody, stop? Not the writers, not the directors, the actors, the editors, distributors. Not one person stopped and went, that's a little cartoonish. Then a year later, I guess he got fired from his corporate job for having a dead family. Now he's an Uber driver. He hears a stabby guy got convicted, and then the rest of the movie, he's just driving people around and being sad. It has nothing to say about grief, other than that, it sucks. Oyelowo isn't bad per se, but there is one shot that's just him crying, and he makes this noise. And he thought, all right, doing that for longer than he should have. I did the shorter version of what's in this movie. And when the movie ends, it just ends with the yellow being like, I'm over it. There's kind of a relief thing, because the daughter of these very rude customers kind of looks like his dead daughter, and she hugs him for generally no reason. Yeah, the movie ends, and I'm just like, what was the point of all that? It did make me laugh a lot, but that was not the goal. Invincible is a true story about a young man named Marc-Antoine Beignet, sorry if I mispronounced that, who's a delinquent in a juvenile detention center, and it follows him during his final days. I found this movie quite effective. It was very well shot, well edited. All the performances of, Leokim Bumie Lepin. Again, sorry if I mispronounced. He felt very grounded in the situation in a way that blended to the storytelling. The writing follows some familiar beats, but the goal of showing this tragic story, and it is a tragedy, of a boy who squandered genuine potential due to his own mistakes. It's not the easiest pill to swallow, but it's very effective telling of the story. If I had to nitpick, I'd say the final shot where a character does a thing that, maybe go, that's a bit much. But I'm going to let that slide and say Invincible is quite great. Night of Fortune is about an elderly man who goes to see his dead wife in a coffin, where he meets another man who's too afraid to see his dead wife in a coffin. There's a little more to the story, but I think that's all you really need to know. I love Night of Fortune. It's a little simple, but I think this movie pulled off what the actor wanted to pull off, which is show a digestible examination of grief, how we all react differently, and how, at the end of the day, it is important not just for you, but for your lost one. The movie is also quite hilarious. I found myself laughing quite a bit, intentionally this time, after. I'm not going to go as far as to say the movie's particularly profound or interesting, but I love the approach so much, and the funny reveals, and the movie did get to me and maybe cry a little in the end. Red, White, and Blue is the next film, and it is, easily my favorite in the category and of any of the short nominees. The film follows a down-on-her-luck single mom of 2 kids who crosses state lines to get an abortion. The film is a very clear critique about America's stance on abortion and how difficult it can be for women to get one. The movie, obviously, like I said, details the fact that she has to cross state lines, but also financial struggles. What I love about the movie is that nothing about this feels fake. I don't just mean the subject matter, I mean the relationship with her kids and the non-abortion related struggles the main character goes through. It feels very real. Brittany Snow is, fucking so natural that I believe every single moment of the film, and she's in practically every scene. But as some who's been paying attention and are in, the same circles as me, you've probably heard that there's a big reveal. And yeah, that reveal fucking broke me. I could not have cried faster. But the reveal, while it was definitely trying to get a reaction, I believe that's not all it was. It was very successful at driving home its point. I feel like if I went back to see it again, the whole movie would feel different, knowing what I know now. And despite the dour subject at hand, the movie ends interestingly, not optimistic per se, but on a light note. I genuinely thought Red, White, and Blue is brilliant, and I'll be fucking furious if anything else wins. Now, the final short is The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. This is one of Wes Anderson's Roald Dahl short adaptations, and it tells the story of Henry Sugar, apparently a wonderful one, about a man who is able to see without his eyes. I was actually really impressed with the production of the film. Aesthetically, it's what you expect out of a Wes Anderson movie, and I don't mean that insultingly by any means. The movie has a lot of long takes and moving shots and interesting uses of production design. The actors were pretty impressive. A lot of them had to memorize, and despite the stoicism, I genuinely was okay, that's some damn impressive monologue work. I imagine there was I can't imagine there wasn't cue cards on set, but even with that caveat, it's pretty impressive. The writing is, however, really bad. If you're a Wes Anderson fan, you'll probably enjoy this. But as a non-Wes Anderson fan, I found the film to be mind-numbingly annoying. So much of the film is nothing but characters telling us a story as actors race to the next monologue. There's nothing in it emotionally. A lot of the film is non-sequiturs. There's a whole sequence about the man who inspired Henry Sugar that could have easily been shortened or cut out as it led to nothing. In the grand scheme of things, I should say. Somehow the 40-minute movie runs too long. I know I'm not the biggest Wes Anderson fan, but The French Dispatch, while I didn't like it, it didn't annoy me like this did. And while I had my issues with Asteroid City, I could tell where Anderson's head was at with that one. The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar felt like it was just nothing but Wes Anderson showing off how quirky he is. And I know a lot of you love this movie, but I genuinely want to ask, what about the writing was good? Again, I get the production was great, and I don't want to project this onto people, but it kind of feels like the obvious shortcomings of the script are given a pass just because it's Wes Anderson. So yeah, no, that's all the short films that was not ever made. Like, subscribe, share, and that's it. Bye-bye.